David Eichholt, Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, part of 24/7 Sports Network. Sean, some expected news yesterday as Kris Murray has officially declared for the 2022 NBA draft. But as always, an important distinction, he has left the door open to return to Iowa for another season. And certainly trying to read in between the lines of his statement, it seems initially he is leaning toward that way. But you never know how the NBA draft process is going to go. Obviously, his brother Keegan is expected to be a top 5, maybe especially easily a top 10 pick. But Sean, a smart but expected move for Kris Murray. But, for people who think that he might not be drafted in this year's draft if he stays in, I think our sources say otherwise right now.
Yeah, I definitely think there is potential for Kris to get drafted should he decide to, be in that, stay in the draft. But you never really know with second round picks. And, I think there's an argument to be made that some people would prefer to be undrafted guys rather than, late second round, depending on who you ask. So, I think that's a really interesting distinction. And yeah, I mean, like you said before, Dave, obviously this seemed to be a long time coming. Kris really played himself into being an NBA prospect this year. It might not be this year that he's an NBA prospect, but, I think next year, there's potential for him to take a really, really big leap. And, you mentioned too with the way that he phrased his comments on social media saying like, hey, like I have really big plans for next year. And, obviously you want to take some of that stuff with a grain of salt, but it really seems to me that he's really leaving the door open to coming back next year. I think that's the expectation right now. And I think there were a couple of interviews postseason where Fan McCaffrey kind of hinted at that. But I think you also have to keep in mind that, there is potential for Kris to leave. Like, he has that potential to play in the NBA, whether that be as a 3 or 4, as a versatile defender and as a guy that, has an improved jump shot, improved offensive game. Not really the marksman like Keegan is in a way, but I think what he brings to the table is really promising as far as, potential and, just kind of long-term upside in the NBA.
Think back to Keegan's postseason comments as well. He said Kris is ready to take that next step. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to be the man. And, again, you take those comments with a grain of salt. But if Kris does come back, Sean, it's easy to believe he'd be on that short list for potential Big Ten player of the year heading into next season. I mean, I expect him to be a guy that could put up 18, 19 a game if he can stay out of foul trouble. And if he can take his confidence and mental game to that next level, as we saw again, what Keegan did this past season, which I think was a little bit of an underrated part of his development. But Sean, we'll have all of our subscribers and everybody else informed at HawkeyeInsider.com. So be sure to follow us on social media and stay tuned to 24/7 Sports for the latest on Iowa athletics.